back. Recent grad students are looking to the future, and that transition to the real world for high school students looks different nowadays, especially when it comes to building financial foundation.
Here to tell us more about the trends among Gen Z and how parents can help is Brian King, the president of Bank of America Maine. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you both so much for having me today.
It's a good, timely conversation. First off, what do you think is different about this year's graduating class financially?
Well, this is Gen Z, right? We're in the heart of Gen Z, and this is going to be, if you forecast that over the next 10 years, going to be one of the biggest generations that we have. And so you also think about this group that really lived through COVID, right? So very interesting class of graduates going through right now.
Yeah, so what financial challenges could they be experiencing, and are there some positive aspects to this as well?
Yeah, so, at our bank, Bank of America, our institute, we have access to nearly 70 million clients, right? And so we monitor that, and, what we're seeing so far is, this generation, particularly coming out of school, spending a little bit more than they're saving, right? Which is classic. So, being able to establish a budget is real important for these young people starting out their career today.
Well, according to a Bank of America survey, nearly half of Gen Z are starting to invest early, and 2/3 are implementing lifestyle changes like cutting back on dining out. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of the digital tools that are available now. You think about this generation now, these are the first kids that have been, with the internet since day one, right? So there's so many tools at their disposal, at their phone, to help monitor and understand how to invest.
Yeah, so what are some of those financial tips that you have for the class of 2025?
I would say save more, spend less, right? And start saving early, right? So if you're lucky enough to get a job right out of high school, if you're going off to secondary education, you get into an employer, understand what the benefits are from your employer, like a 401k, for example, right? Being able to match what that employer is giving, that's free money, so absolutely. But also setting a budget, right? We like to say, as a rule of thumb, when you net out everything, have 50 to 60% of your income to cover all of your bills, your rent, your loan payments, your utilities, but then take that other 50%, right? 25%, the fun money, entertainment, things like that, but then save that other 25% and treat savings like a bill, right? Put it away and save it for the future, because your future self will thank you for it.
What do you think are some easy ways that recent grads can save and not spend? We kind of mentioned maybe cutting back on dining out. I mean, you talk about, making your own coffee for a couple mornings a week, stuff like that.
Yeah, be thrifty. I like to bring my lunch to work every day. I'm fortunate enough to have a wife that makes me lunch every day, which is great. But yeah, think about ways that you can just save. There's little opportunities to do that, and track it, right? Like I mentioned, these digital tools that are available today to track spending, you'd be amazed at where the money goes, right? If you're not, oftentimes it's like, where'd all my money go? Right. But if you establish, a tracking mechanism, and there's a ton of them out there to choose from, it can really open your eyes to where that money's going and provide you feedback on how you can save more and spend less.
Yeah, and my next question, you kind of answered it, I think, a little bit there, but do you have any advice for parents on this topic to help their kids out?
Yes, start early. I'm fortunate enough and my wife to have raised two Gen Zers ourselves. They're young adults, and we started really early, right? When they were getting 14, 15 years old, that's the perfect time to start talking to them about saving, right? That's when they're going to start getting their first job, their license, right? Open up a bank account, provide them a debit card, right? Pay at the pump as they start driving. Just teach them those habits early and make it part of their everyday.
What do you think about age as far as when the kids should be getting their first bank account?
I'll tell you, it's never too early. We have a family banking product now where we're working with parents that starts at ages 8 and 9 years old, right? Just, you go to Fenway Park today, it's cashless, right? So you need that debit card. You need a way to transact digitally, so it's never too early.
Do you see this trend continuing with the way Gen Z spends, or do you think there's maybe anything that our generation could do to kind of combat overspending?
Yeah, I think they're onto it now. Like, we're starting to see that shift, particularly with the budgeting tools that we've talked about, and there's some great resources out there for young people today to learn about this. So we have a Better Money Habits at, if you go to bankofamerica.com, that teaches about spending and credit. That's another thing I'd say is don't be afraid of credit. Today, kids are coming out with school loans. They're going to need to borrow money for cars, eventually mortgages, things like that. But learn how to manage credit. Oftentimes, people view credit cards as bad, right? But if you know how to use it responsibly and develop a FICO score, you're going to need those tools as you continue to progress, with your financial life.
And for parents as well, do you feel like there's a benefit to sort of leading by example? And you know, when you're
Absolutely.
going to the bank, you're making these financial decisions. Let them in on the conversation.
Exactly, absolutely. Highly encourage people to bring their children into the bank when they're there. You know, show them how to use online banking tools, things along those lines. You know, we talk a lot about, you know, physical health. We talk now importantly about mental health. We need to be talking about financial health as well. It's an important part, as you know, as you can continue throughout your life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
Yes.
is there any website that grads and parents can go to find out more resources?
Absolutely, I'd highly recommend Bank of America, bettermoneyhabits.com. We've got a tremendous amount of resources around deposit accounts, credit, how to set up a budget, planning, all of that. So it's a great resource, and I know there's others out there as well. Obviously, I'm a little biased towards that one.
It's so important to get ahead of this early, especially when you think about how easily debt can kind of, you know,
Yes,
pile up.
that's
so
exactly right.
Thank you so much for your time this
Thank
morning.
you for having me. Appreciate it.
it.